is going on? Welcome back to another podcast. I'm your host, Charlie, and I'm here with Jay.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, how are we all doing this week? Hope you guys tuned into last week's episode. It was a pretty good episode with four of us talking, but this week's a little bit of like a one-on-one kind of session. We kind of just have a little mini hangout here.
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Oh, hang on, copyright infringement there. We can't really do that. But it's fine. So basically this week's going to be an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about everything we know about the Nintendo Switch 2. Ooh. Yeah, so there's a rumor of the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out, and then later in the episode, we'll talk about the Palworld Controversy, if there is any controversy. I mean, it all depends on your stance on the whole situation, but yeah, I guess it depends how you feel about it all. But before we do that, let's do our usual thing. Jay, what have you been playing this week?
Look, with my limited time, I like to go to Sea of Thieves usually. I have been attempting Apex again, but I'm just not enjoying it. It's just shit now. Excuse me.
Oh, really? Apex is not good?
Well, it's the same game. It's just the player base is a little bit toxic. I don't know if everyone finds this, but I find lag. It affects me quite a lot. So I just play it as like a casual game and just jump in if I've got like 10 minutes maybe. I'm just trying to kill something before other people join a game maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Apex Legends, I think, is a game that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. It's one of those games where I'll jump in, I'll jam it for a while, and I'll get back into it and go, yeah, I really like this game. I don't know why I left. And then I'll just stop playing for a bit, and then I just won't pick it up for a fair while. I guess it's like until later on that I'm like suddenly in the mood for like a shooter and I'm not really feeling Call of Duty. I'll jump back in and go, oh yeah, let's see what they changed. But
yeah, that's about right. I mean, I can't think of any other games or shooter games in particular that I actually enjoy anymore. So I still go to Apex, but then I play it and I remember why I don't play it. It's a bit of a tough one for me.
It's one of those kind of games where you play it and you go, why did I ever give this up? And then you start, the more you play it, the more you start to realize, yeah, that's why I stopped playing.
Look, I'm going to be honest. The game as a shooter is great. It has awesome movement. I mean, the use of guns, pretty much everything about the game mechanically is fine. I just don't enjoy getting hit with lag, rubber banded, having some 14-year-olds scream at me. And you know how it was back in Call of Duty, all the 12-year-olds screaming, that sort of thing. Excuse me. That's basically what I cop now. So, I just enjoy it casually more than anything, and I don't get mad when the bad stuff happens.
Yeah, I can understand that. I kind of feel the same when I play Rainbow Six Siege, for example. I jump into that game, I play it, and I'm like, oh, this is great fun. And then after a while, you get all these little hard, sweaty people that are just like team killing for the hell of it, and you're like, hey, okay, yeah, now I remember why I stopped playing this.
Yep, that's exactly right. I did get Shadows of Mordor, I think it was the second Lord of the Rings game that come out.
Shadow of War.
Yeah, Shadow of War. But it's 100 gigs, so I just haven't downloaded it onto my, using my potato internet rather. So I got it and Sea of Thieves at the same time, I think. But I just left Shadow of War on Steam, waiting to be downloaded.
Yeah, cool, man. That's cool. Like, I've had a few games downloaded that I haven't bothered to finish. Like, I was playing the Pokemon DLC for a bit, and then I just kind of dropped it for a bit because they had the Epilogue DLC come out, which was tying up all the loose ends from the Area Zero Indigo Disc, DLC.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get a chance to really finish that because then I jumped across and I was playing Metro 2033 for a bit because it was on sale for the January sale. So I figured I'd pick that up and play that for a bit. And then I got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and I started playing the campaign, a little bit of that. So I thought it was okay. And then, yeah, obviously the big elephant in the room, Palworld dropped, and then I've been playing that non-stop ever since.
I thought that was the new expansion you were talking about.
No. Palworld is a completely different game. you can see the similarities between Pokemon and Palworld quite a lot. But we'll save that for later in the podcast because that's a whole different topic. But yeah, Palworld is it's such an addictive game, man. It's a game that it's very rare that a game comes along that you just pick up and you just can't put down. It's just a game that you just enjoy so much that you're just like, I need to spend every waking minute that I possibly can to be playing this game. So,
it was only like 10 years ago games were like that. And I was just thinking the other day, I just want more immersive, maybe 1 or 2 or even 4-player, like co-op games like they used to be, where you could all just jump in and it was story driven and you could enjoy it with a few friends. And I think that's on the rise a little bit again. There have been a couple games I've seen over the last week. Can't remember the name of one, but it's like a fantasy medieval style thing. Dang it. I got to find the name of that while we're doing this. So I'm going to have a quick look.
Yeah, I would agree with you, actually. I think there's a bit of a rise in multiplayer games, particularly after the pandemic and stuff like that. It's really come to the forefront about how disconnected we have been in games. Like, not to say that we haven't been playing games together. Obviously, there's been a ton of multiplayer games that have come out over the years, but none that have been like, let's get a whole guild together and, let's play the shit out of this and build our big empires and bases and all that. There's nothing being that captivating that gets everyone interested. Like, surely when a game comes out, you get a few friends together, you jam it for about, I don't know, maybe a month at most, and then people just drop off.
Yeah.
But it's rare you have a game where everyone's consistently jumping on it and going, yeah, we're having hours of fun, and it's just, even if we're not playing together, we're still doing all our own thing in the game. And then, if we want to do a particular thing, we're like, hey, man, I need help with this raid or dungeon or whatever, then we will reunite and go take it on. But I don't think you've really seen that since, the days of, World of Warcraft when that first came out. That's probably around that era. Not that I was a fan of World of Warcraft. It really wasn't it just wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't really like it. I could understand why other people did, but it just wasn't my thing.
The social aspects of World of Warcraft are great because I played from the Burning Crusade towards the late and end of the Burning Crusade. That is the first expansion. And then I played until Mists of Pandaria, which was the 4th expansion, I believe. And I sort of finished around then. And that's also when the game sort of dropped off a bit more socially. It just started dying out, not just because of less people. It's just the game just started losing what it was at first, being that far in. It just, I don't know, man, it was different and it was very visible within the game. So it did lose a lot of players because of that. And plus people gave pandas shit, although they were part of the lore of World of Warcraft. They just, it just changed and, people stopped enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think the other game that maybe was a bit inclusive like that was Destiny 1 when that came out. I remember jamming that with my friends on PlayStation 4 when that came out, and that was a ton of fun. It was good. And Destiny 2 came out, and I played it for a bit with my friends, but eventually as time went on, I just kind of got bored with the same kind of thing of, run and shoot this, running, do this, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Destiny 2 is one of those games where I kind of, once again, have a love-hate relationship with it. It's one of those games where I stop playing it for a bit, a new DLC will drop, I'll jump back in to see what's changed. I play it for a month or two, and then I just drop off again. I think also because, the raids came out and they would take hours on hours on end to complete. I just didn't have enough friends that were willing to commit to that many hours to complete a raid. So for me, I missed out on a lot of cool content for Destiny because it was all based around, people's time commitments to be able to do all those kind of events.
That's right. That was the same, I guess, with me in World of Warcraft. So after a while, I got older and had more commitments to make. But prior to that, there was the social aspects within the game back then. You could almost always find a group to party up with or to raid. And eventually, I guess, I don't know if it's because of less people or people lost interest, but you could do things more solo in that game. You didn't actually need people. After a while, they introduced a lot of things that just made it too easy to do things on your own. And I think that would have also affected it quite significantly. So raid finders, dungeon finders, you no longer had to run to a portal and yell in a world chat or something like that. So that would have changed it a fair bit.
Yeah, I think we were playing World of Warcraft. Like, I did give it a go because, Mitch, that, I would normally stream with and we do the podcast with when he's available. That's a whole different topic. But when he, Mitch and I have been close friends for a long time, and he got me into doing World of Warcraft, and he got me to buy the expansion pack, the Burning Crusade, and Leech King, I think it was the other one.
Yeah, the second expansion.
I don't know if that was right, but it's all I can remember. But, yeah, he got me to jump into it then, and I gave it a go for a bit, and I got bored, honestly. It was one of those things where, you get a quest, you end up traveling or walking for like an hour in game or whatever, or an hour in real life to go finish the quest. And then you'd be like, walking all the way back to go redeem the quest, and you're like, this is just dumb.
Yeah, I get that. I mostly played the game for the PvP. It was a pretty cool PvP game. So, and I played, I don't know if you call it the underdog class, but the warrior class. I found that super fun.
Yeah. Well, that's like in Destiny 2, or even just Destiny. I played the Warlock in the demo because I wasn't sure what class to go, and I'm like, oh, the Warlock sounds kind of cool. And then I pretty much just made the Warlock through to even Destiny 2. I just made Warlock more than anything else because I'm just a big fan of Hunter or the Titan class. So it's one of those things you get comfortable with.
I played in Destiny 2. I found that game I was talking about earlier, or trying to get the name of. It's called Enshrouded. Released the 25th of January this year. I don't know if you've seen it on Steam yet.
Yeah, I have seen it.
But that looks interesting.
Mitch was trying to get us to play it because we're all playing. Ironically, everyone's playing Palworld at the moment, but he's like, "Oh, there's another building custom game that's come out, like a very similar kind of style called Enshrouded, and it's been on my radar for a while." We're like, oh yeah, cool story, bro. We're back to playing Palworld.
That's right, and actually, I have noticed that trying to even get games or into a game in Apex Legends, it's actually gone down since Palworld was released. It takes longer. I don't know if that's all games. I have a very limited range of games, and I think that's affected it. And even in Sea of Thieves, now the player base, when I get into a map in Sea of Thieves, seems to only be people who want to take your ship down. And it used to be a case where there were just more casual people who would raise a white flag, or they would shoot a white flare into the sky just to show you that they don't want any trouble, basically. Now it's just, I'm going to fucking ram my ship into you and then drop a keg of explosives and just, you're dead. That's basically how it goes now. So especially as a solo player, I tend to float around the ocean a fair bit on my own trying to find loot to buy a ship. So you can charter ships or you can buy one, and there's quite a fair bit of benefit in having your own ship. But that's what I've noticed since Palworld come out, man. So it's different in those two games that I have been playing so far.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the fun of it, I guess. I guess on the flip side of it, we might as well get into the news stories. The Switch 2 rumors have been circulating as well, and I guess it's a good time with Palworld out, but also Pokemon releasing their DLC. A lot of people are pretty excited to see where Nintendo's taking the franchise, along with Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, where they're going to take the franchise next. And we probably won't know until Pokemon Day later this year. Well, actually, I think it's in March. I think Pokemon Day is. But yeah, hopefully we'll get some news then. But there's also been a lot of rumors circulating as of late last year, actually mid last year, that Nintendo is actually working on a Nintendo Switch 2. This rumor mill started kicking off on about September 8th of 2023, according to Kotaku, where Nintendo were holding secret Switch 2 demos for developers behind closed doors. And then from there, they were talking about the power it has. According to Activision, Nintendo Switch's successor is on the same level as a PS4 or Xbox One in terms of its raw power output, which is very interesting. For Nintendo to actually step up their power in their consoles to get it to a level of PS4 or Xbox One, it's definitely quite an interesting aspect. A lot of people would be like, well, PS4 and Xbox One, that's not that powerful. I mean, we're in a new generation now, right? But Nintendo's never been about the graphics or like what the console can do, like power wise. They've always just been on, let's make the games good as they possibly can be.
That's right. They're different. They're not the same.
Well, yeah, when the people ask, like, it's not a new thing for people to ask Nintendo and going, how come your graphics in comparison to, PS5 or Xbox Series X or even PC, how come your graphics are not on par with everybody else? And they've always said, it's not about the graphics, it's about the gameplay experiences, and that's what we focus on mostly. And to their credit, they're right, because most of their games are usually in the high, like usually review pretty high. They're usually somewhere in the 7 to anywhere between 7 to 9 in the scale brackets of most of the games they get reviewed on. From Nintendo directly, that is. So.
Yeah. Well, I can remember playing games with those sorts of graphics, I don't know, like 15 years ago, and that doesn't bother me. Nintendo have just done well with what they have.
I guess the real question is if the console, or the Switch 2, whatever it is dubbed, it's not actually, probably won't be called the Switch 2, but everyone's calling it that for now. If the Switch 2 does have the power of a PS4 or Xbox One, what game would you think would take the most advantage of having that kind of graphical output from that kind of power behind it?
You mean in terms of the current lineup they've got, like moving forward and making new games from the existing franchises? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like, so for the existing franchises we have currently, like Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Donkey Kong, Mario, all those kind of Nintendo staples.
Look, I would love to see a more Tarzanified Donkey Kong. I don't know what I mean by that, but I can tell you that like an open world Donkey Kong would be sick. Let's just throw barrels at people like in the open world, something like that.
It's kind of like Donkey Kong 64, but a little bit more open worldish. Yeah.
Look, I immediately thought of Zelda. Sorry, it's being open world now with Breath of the Wild and was it Tears of the Fallen Kingdom. It's funny. I bought Tears of the Fallen Kingdom and I've played like an hour of it. That's it. I've had it for I don't know, since it came out nearly.
Is it scandalous to admit that I haven't actually finished Breath of the Wild?
Oh no. Well, I guess that's where the podcast ends. We don't have anything to talk about if you haven't finished that.
We're not friends anymore. Bye.
No, look, it's fine. I mean, it happens. Some games aren't for everyone, and you move on. There are other things to do, and some games go to the back, some come to the front. They just shuffle around, man.
Well, I think that, Breath of the Wild, don't get me wrong, it did captivate me. I played it. It's probably the most I've played a Legend of Zelda game, because I'm going to be real honest. Legend of Zelda has never really grabbed my appeal, never grabbed my attention. It's just one of those things growing up. I just never played it as a kid. I didn't grow up playing it when I was older. And when I did start playing it, I just had no idea what the concept was or how the story worked or anything like that. Which, is a bit of a shame, because one of our best mates, Zach, he's hardcore into Zelda. It's always been his favorite franchise. But yeah, I just never really got into it. And then I think I started getting into it with Breath of the Wild. It was one of the first games where, everybody was talking about it. The hype was there. And then I was like, maybe I should give it a go and give it a go and play it. And then I started playing it. I did it for a fair while. Got up to the, was it like a camel kind of animal, whatever, where you rotate the rooms around?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, you got to that bit, and then I just couldn't figure out the puzzle, and I just gave up. I haven't played since.
Look, I will be honest, there probably was a few times I had to go to YouTube during Zelda. I'm not gonna lie, I'm the same as you, man. I never really played a Zelda game until then. I knew of them and I'd saw videos, but I mean, as far as playing the actual games, that was pretty sure that was the first one I ever actually played.
Yeah. So it was one of those titles where I think I jumped on it because everyone was hyped about it, and it almost got Game of the Year and all that, and everyone was playing the crap out of it. And so I was like, maybe this is the first time I dabble into the Legend of Zelda franchise, and it was a great experience. It's good fun. Played a lot of it because it was kind of a really good open world kind of game. And then, I don't know. I got to a point where I was just like, I think I'm done. Like I think I've played enough of it. I haven't finished it, but I think this is enough for me, and I'm going to move on to something else.
I thought
I
that
also
just go ahead, sorry, man.
and I think also because I think Pokemon or something came out, and it was another Nintendo title anyway, came out not that long after it that I started playing that, and I got kind of distracted and just got suckered into that.
Yeah. I think in terms of the original question of what games could utilize it most, a simple answer from me is I'm not really too concerned about the utilization. I just think having more power, game developers are going to utilize it. And as long as they focus on the story-driven content, I think Nintendo are still going to do well regardless. And the benefit is just better-looking games, really.
Yeah, I don't debate that's a bad thing or a good thing. I mean, really, if the games are going to grow up and a little bit into the PS4 era or the Xbox One era, like the games still look pretty good in the PS4 and Xbox One era. I mean, you look at games like Last of Us 2 or Halo 4 or Halo 5 even, they all looked pretty decent in that era of the gaming world, that kind of space. So you imagine like playing a game like Metroid Prime 4 or a Mario title, like a 3D Mario title with the graphics of a PS4 engine, like you're looking at a pretty good looking Mario game.
Yeah, my wife would love that.
Or a really good Kirby looking game, or even the powered for that kind of power for a Pokemon title even. Like, can you imagine how good Pokemon would look if you had the power of a PS4 being behind it?
Imagine how successful it would be if it was open world.
Well, they kind of be dabbling with it. I mean, it was Pokemon Scarlet Violet, the newest entries, and even the ones before that, Sword and Shield, were getting to a space where it was almost getting open world.
Yeah, I did play Sword and Shield. It was actually a good game, but the thing I've come across is the Pokemon games haven't really changed. I mean, I can remember playing Pikachu, well, not Pikachu, Yellow, back on the handheld ones. And it's kind of the same feel in general, but it is Pokemon. I mean, I don't really know how far you can go. They have obviously innovated and done some things, but at the end of the day, it still feels like a Pokemon game. I don't know if they want to bring something new, but I guess this is where opinions come in, and I'm sort of subjective. I don't really enjoy them all that much anymore. Mind you, I still will enjoy using an emulator on my phone and playing the old Game Boy games.
Yeah, nothing hits better than nostalgia, right? So even the old Pokemon games is great.
Yeah, man.
But I think they were kind of onto something when they released Pokemon Arceus, Pokemon Legends Arceus. I felt like that was the good direction of the Pokemon franchise, where they should take it next.
I never played that one, to be honest.
Oh, mate, it's one of the best Pokemon games they've put out in like years. Because it's not just battling. In fact, battling was very minimal. It was more about the catching and different mechanics for catching the Pokemon, which made it more enjoyable.
Okay.
And instead of you just hit some Pokeballs, go catch. It's literally like you got to craft your like Pokeballs and from apricorns and stuff like that, and you've got to sneak up on Pokemon, and Pokemon will do different things in the wild to make it easier or harder to catch. And
I'm pretty sure I got that fatigue in that game, and I don't think we've ever actually played it, either of us.
Then they had like Alpha Pokemon, which much bigger Pokemon, larger than life, that were basically mini bosses that you take on, and you'd throw as many balls at them as you can to try and catch them before they kill you, and your team just like defend and all that. And it was great fun. It's probably the most fun I've had in a Pokemon game in a very long time. And it wasn't just like you caught one Pokemon, you got the Pokedex entry, and that's it. It's also like the more of them you catch, the more you fill your Pokedex entry, and the more you discover about what these Pokemon do, the different versions of them as well. Because this is set like hundreds of years before Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, so it gives you the backstory of like how the Sinnoh region came to existence and how Arceus made Pokemon and all that kind of thing.
Okay. Maybe I should jump back on the Nintendo. We have 3 Switch consoles here, dude. Yeah, I'm sure I could fit in playing one of them.
Yeah, and it's definitely a really well versed title. It's definitely and it opens like you open up new areas. The more Pokemon you catch, the more Pokedex entries you get into your like journal. The more it opens up other areas, and you can get special Pokemon and different versions. And yeah, it got all really interesting. So I feel like if they did that on the Switch too with a brand new entry, I think that'd be a game changer. Like everyone would buy Pokemon again. That's not to say that the last couple entries in the Pokemon franchise have been successful, but I feel like it'd be grabbing everyone's appeal back into the Pokemon world if you had that kind of set up on something as powerful as a PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the timeline of Switch 2. As of October last year, Switch 2 hype grows after Nintendo mysteriously pulled an old reveal trailer from their YouTube channel. So Nintendo privated the original 2016 announcement video for the Switch, prompting fans to speculate that it's clearing the deck for the Switch 2. Which is not uncommon. Nintendo do that from time to time. When there's a new announcement, they go back and they remove the previous generation of consoles from their playlists. So it doesn't cause confusion when they do launch a new console. They did that for the Wii U when the Switch got announced. So it only makes sense that the Switch 2 would probably have a similar effect.
I totally forgot the Wii U existed.
I think a lot of people did, to be honest, that it was a colossal failure on Nintendo's part.
Back in my day.
I think for the Wii U's failure, I think that was purely just poor name choice more than anything else. Because, people talk about the Wii U and a lot of families that weren't in the gaming space would just thought it was an add-on accessory for the Wii.
That's the sound Miss Piggy made from the Muppets. Wii U, Wii U, Wii U. That's what I think of every time. Wii U 2. Damn, that would be a hell of a console.
Well, let's just say that the Wii U kind of paved the way for the success of the Switch, because poor naming choice, calling it the Wii U. A lot of people thought it was a peripheral, didn't realize it was a new console. That's not to say that the tablet pad thing that they had for it kind of set up the path for a Switch with handheld gaming. And honestly, the Wii U was, in my opinion, actually one of the better consoles they actually put out. It just was very hard to develop for, and poor marketing choices led to its downfall.
Yeah, look, I've got to say the same thing. We had one here, and it wasn't actually a bad console in itself.
I quite enjoyed it. My brother-in-law had one. We played Mario on it all the time. We'd play Mario Kart on it. It was great fun. I thought it was a fantastic console. It's just, poor naming choices just ruined it for everyone. And then it also didn't help that, they're like, oh, yeah, we'll get developers to, develop games for it. But then the developers all came out and were like, yeah, this thing is hard to develop for. And the fact that you're forcing us to use this tablet for for a game development, we can't actually turn that off or anything. You actually have to use it. It's very limiting on what we can do with our games.
Look, it's not a thing anymore anyway, the Wii U. I don't even think they're selling them in places like Cash Converters and Pennywise and all those, not a thrift shop, or I guess pawn shops you might call them.
Yeah, they're very hard to track one down. Like, I think you can barely even find them online. Like, it's just like a piece of Nintendo hardware that would just go, like, one day it might be worth like thousands of dollars because it'd be one thing that nobody could ever find again. But
20 years from now, it'll be on shelves as a classic console, man. Don't worry.
Yeah, probably. We end up in retro stores. They'll be like, hey, you remember the Wii U? And everyone's like, what the frick is a Wii U?
You'll be paying in other currencies, though. Like, you'll be paying 70,000 pesos or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so later on the timeline, later in the same month of October, the Switch 2 could look like one of Nintendo's classic handhelds. A new patent had revealed one possible concept for the Nintendo Switch successor, a design that remembers its classic handhelds, which looks very similar to, it actually looks very similar to a 3DS, interestingly enough. It's a foldable design, looks like a 3DS, and you can fold it over, and the screen's on the front, and then you can fold it open to be like the Samsung Fold kind of phone. It would be very similar to that.
That could be pretty handy.
Yeah, so not only is it can be single screen on the front, but when you open it, just double screen on the inside, which is what the painted looks like. And it literally looks like a hybrid between a 3DS and a Switch.
Okay.
So I think they could work. I mean, that's a pretty good design. I think the 3DS was a very good design, very well sold console. And to have a screen on the front for the Switch where you could have it in both modes, I think that works really well. Particularly if you're going to have a game with PS4 or Xbox level graphics, I think that would work out really well.
I would actually be pretty keen to see more games become mobile. Just your handheld phone. You can get like your Asus gaming phones now. The what's the thing called? The Samsung Galaxy, the 24 that's just come out. Apparently, it's actually the best handheld gaming device, or not gaming device, but gaming phone. Surprisingly, it's better than the others.
Yeah, well, I could definitely see that being in the space. I mean, that's one of the main benefits of the Switch, right? Like it's the fact you can pick it up and play it handheld, and then if you feel like playing on a bigger screen, you put it on the dock and you're playing on the TV. So I can definitely see that's definitely a good route for a lot of people. And I'm going to be honest, I play most of my Switch games in handheld mode. I hardly ever play it on the TV.
So I'm in like an all-in-one package. I've got my mobile phone. If I don't need to go out and get like a handheld gaming console or a PC, like I'm just going to dock this at my computer screen and maybe connect up a keyboard and mouse. That would be sick, dude.
Yeah, man, I can totally see a very good use for that, and I also see a very good use with things like the Asus ROG Ally or the Lenovo Legion Go that I think they just released, or Steam Deck. Yeah. I can see more and more of those kind of console kind of things for gaming also being utilized for many other useful things. Like for me, being like my role outside of this is being a sales manager for one of the leading retailers in Australia, and I have to do a lot of presentations and stuff. And I take notes when I go to meetings and stuff like that. And what a better way to do it than just take my gaming console and, chuck it on a dock, roll out a little keyboard, and next thing I'll use it as my work PC as well.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So, yeah, it's definitely for me. I think that's a design that just purely makes sense to me. And I'd be very surprised if they didn't roll with something like that.
I'm just looking at the Lenovo Legion Ryzen Z1, just as we're talking. Just getting my head in the space. I won't say the name of the company I'm currently scrolling through now to find the device, but when I get there, I'm going to give you the name because it's a console I saw when I was walking through the shop. I've got a friend who actually works there, and he pointed it out to me. For the life of me, cannot bloody find it as I'm scrolling through, though. Why can't it just come to me? Bugging me. Anyway, moving on from that.
Yeah, cool. So later in the timeline, Nintendo disputes the Switch 2 rumors. Even though there's credible evidence, Nintendo is still denying that a Switch 2 console is even in the offering, even as evidence of its existence continues to pile up. Which, from a classic PR sense, makes sense that Nintendo would deny anything like that. They would probably be like, you guys should know about that, so shh, we're not going to talk about it. So, of course, they wouldn't do anything like that. I'm going to skip the next one because it's just purely rhetoric. I'm not going to even talk about it. But then Kotaku, as of January 4th this year, talked to analysts. An analyst says, games industry analyst predicts that Nintendo will have a Switch 2 console on shelves in 2024, but that it won't be a revolution on the Switch. It'll be more like an interim console between the Switch and whatever the successor after the Switch 2 or whatever it's called comes out. So I'm thinking it's going to be very similar to the Switch design, maybe some extra features, more graphical power, but it's not going to be anything revolutionary where it's like, oh my God, you changed the gaming space or anything like that. Which makes sense because it's usually every second Nintendo console that comes out is something revolutionary, but usually it's just small increments of power coming from the next console up.
I'd be keen to see the hardware specs when they come up for that console.
Well, I mean, you look at the Wii. The Wii was one of the most successful consoles of all time. Everybody had a Wii. Even my great aunt had a Wii. I was very surprised. She's not usually into gaming, but she had a Wii.
Sorry,
My
I gotta
parents had a
laugh at
Wii.
that. Everyone's got a Wii.
What would you do at some point? I mean, it's just a natural human bodily function.
Yeah,
Welcome
if
to the science
Nintendo,
podcast.
if Nintendo held their Wii in, that wouldn't be very good.
No, exactly. Gotta get a bit of a release every now and then. Jesus. But yeah, no, it wouldn't make sense to me. I mean, you look at the Wii, and then the Wii U, and then you look at the Switch. There's a big difference between Switch and the Wii. Big difference between something like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then jumping to the Nintendo 64. Once again, big difference. Big jump from Game Boy to DS when that came out, and then the iterations after that, 2DS, 3DS, that kind of thing.
I can still remember when the Game Boy Color came out, and I thought this shit was crazy. I was 6 or 7 years old or whatever. My mind was blown.
Me too, man. Me too. I remember being that young, and some of the kids at school I went to school with and on grades above me had a Game Boy Color, and they were playing Pokemon Gold. And I thought it was the most insane thing I've ever seen or heard of. I used to sit there and watch them play it, and I'm like, oh my god, wow, this looks so cool, and I really want one. I didn't get one until I was much older. But then, yeah, and I really wanted Pokemon, but I didn't end up with Pokemon. I ended up getting Donkey Kong Country. Actually, it was my first Game Boy Color game, which I didn't mind. I actually really enjoyed Donkey Kong Country. It was actually quite fun. And then I got Dragon Ball Legendary Super Warriors, I think it was called. Fantastic game, soundtrack to that, stuck in my head even to this day. But I didn't actually get a Pokemon title for many years after that. Actually, I think DS was actually the first time I got a Pokemon game, actually. Yeah.
I had one of those translucent case Game Boy Colors, and the first Pokemon game was yellow.
I had the neon purple Game Boy Color.
Oh, yeah. Reminiscing.
But never got to play any Pokemon games, sadly. Not on my Game Boy.
Those were the good old days.
My uncle had a Game Boy Color. It was a green one, neon green. And he got Pokemon Gold. And I remember staying up all night. I stayed over his house one time. Because, interesting fact about me, my uncle was actually the same age as me, which is really weird, but cool.
Essentially your brother. Same difference.
Basically, yeah. It was really weird to say that I grew up going to school with my uncle. It was a bit weird. But, yeah, he had a Game Boy with Pokemon Gold, and I stayed over his house one night, and he went to bed, and I ended up staying up all night. I pulled an all-nighter, and I played Pokemon Gold all night, and nearly finished the game. Overwrote his save file, and I just kept going. He didn't care. He's like, oh, didn't really get far in the game anyway. And I was like, okay, cool. So I played it. Nearly finished it.
I'm sure I've done that on my emulators here on my phone in the past. Stayed up way too long trying to just relive the old Pokemon games.
Yeah. I finished the Elite Four, and I thought that was the end of the game. And then the line was blown, and they're like, now you get to go to Kanto. And I was like, what?
A real quick off-topic question, but you have probably seen the ads with like all-in-one handheld gaming consoles from like Wish and stuff with like the old Mario's on it, Donkey Kongs.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
I'm pretty keen to actually get a decent-looking one and give it a shot, to be honest, because you can get them for like $50.
I've seen those, and I've always been skeptical about what's actually in them or what they actually do, but curious to try one.
It's got to be some pirated form of the game. There's got to be something 100%. In there that makes it different, like.
I bet you it's like a Raspberry Pi or something. It's like dirt cheap to make, and then they've just uploaded it with a ton of emulators.
Yeah, the memes where it's like, we have this at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. It's like Mario's actually some, I don't know, greasy electrician instead of a plumber.
You're not playing Mario, you're playing Italian Man.
Yeah. Come have a look at my salami.
Super Italian Man world.
It's just him
land.
going around beating people with a big stick of salami.
Super Italian Man land place thing.
And he turns Super Saiyan instead of glowing from the stars.
63, because I couldn't work 64.
Just completely rip it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been curious to try this, but I've been also skeptical that like maybe it's a scam.
Yeah. Look, I'm pretty keen though. If it ever comes up and I can see a decent looking console, I might grab it. I'll do a review for you.
I'd love that. You could do a review for our website, shameless plug, to neoair.com, where we have reviews, and we're going to put more content on there, so be sure to check it out.
For all your gaming needs and news.
.com. Yeah, so check it out. Shameless plug. Sell out. Anyway, moving on into the timeline. So as of January 11th, 2024, Switch 2 rumors, well as the major Nintendo games start going out of stock. American retailers are struggling to stock some of the Switch's most popular titles, creating a sense that Nintendo is actually clearing the board, which is actually pretty interesting because they pointed out that games like Super Mario Odyssey, which was the launch title for Nintendo Switch, is actually very hard to get at the moment. There's very little copies out there. There is still copies, you can still get it, but it's very hard to get those kind of copies. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still pretty popular because it sells extremely well, but it's getting harder and harder to get that game. Like Kirby's Forgotten Land and a lot of the Kirby titles are getting harder to find. Super Mario 3D Land, or 3D World, sorry. It's getting harder to find as well. So, poses the question, do you feel like Nintendo's like sweeping out the game catalog because they don't want people to buy old Switch games, or do you feel like maybe it's just they're too focused on other things, or do you think maybe it's just they haven't got the resources to make the games at the moment?
If I look at what other consoles have gone through, I haven't necessarily seen degradation of any kind of their games or sliding backwards. If anything, I would say they've pushed sales a lot more when they know the consoles are coming out, but that's probably because they were all hard copies, man. I haven't actually really bought a game that wasn't on sale for probably 10 years, to be honest, man. I just continuously look in Steam, I'll buy a game from there. So I don't really notice those things, man. I'm stuck in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm just old.
Well, there's a lot of things that are interesting. I think maybe they could hint towards maybe they want to clear out what stock they have before they announce anything new. But at the same time, maybe it could be just simply a supplier issue. Maybe they just don't have enough materials or resources to mass produce a lot of these games. And as games, been out for a while, maybe they're just not being as popular as they were when they first launched. So it could be just simple that the sales are dying down for those particular titles.
So being in the electrical industry myself, I have noticed there's quite a backlog, not backlog, what do you call it? A back order of electronic goods. It is getting harder to source them. Or not harder as such, just the delays are insane now. It's taking so long to get some of that gear. You've got to be ahead. You've always got to have access stock. So what I do is the trade industry. It's not, gaming, but, we all use electronics. And if I'm affected with simple goods just to, turn power on, then I can't imagine what developers might be going through, even if it's just them upgrading their hardware to be able to make the new games, things like that, maybe.
Well, it mainly spurred this because apparently Metroid Dread, the physical release, is now only available at Best Buy in America. Target's removed it from their system. GameStop, aka EB Games, doesn't have it in their system anymore, and you can't get it on Amazon or Walmart. So it'd be interesting to know why the sudden discontinuation of it. with Fire Emblem Engage as well, and Paper Mario Origami King seem to be struggling for stock across the US. It kind of poses the question of maybe they just don't want to produce those kind of games anymore, or maybe they're just about selling as well.
I'm not going to speculate on some of the reasons behind stock shortages, but I have there's a dedicated marketing team where I am, and they've been giving me some of the gossip on world events, but probably shouldn't speculate within a podcast of what that could be. Anyway, probably skip that part there. Don't worry about what I said.
Basically nothing.
You heard nothing from me. I'm not the source.
Something, nothing.
Go watch Joe Rogan's podcast, all
right? Don't plug his podcast. Why don't watch our podcast?
Hey, look, conspiracy theorists, that's where they'll go.
Tinfoil hats. There we go.
I've got mine. I don't need to go there. I'm ahead of him.
I got a tinfoil sombrero.
Man, I got a tinfoil wedding suit.
Oh, the knight in shining armor.
Yep. Should have heard me walk down the aisle.
Just. And then you're like, suddenly my legs are really hot. I'm cooking my legs on this.
I come out well done.
Anywho.
Yep, move on.
So another thing adding to the rumors is that Altec Lensing, which is a company that electronics company that makes audio for a lot of devices, using a device, recently made the Game Shark come back. Actually, they've made an AI powered version called AI Shark. You remember the Game Shark? It was like a hacking tool back in the early 90s to 2000s, where everyone had a Game Shark and you could trick the game into doing whatever you wanted. Very popular in the Pokemon community because people would use it all the time to hack Pokemon events back into games that they couldn't get access to. They've started making new devices, and they mentioned that the official launch is planned to coincide with the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out in September of 2024. So the rumor is the console will come out September 2024. Which kind of makes sense. It's leading into the holiday periods, or starting to get into the holiday period, so which would make sense. I don't think it would be September, honestly. I think that's too soon. I would think probably October would be more accurate, because you go October, November, December, right into the Christmas period, people start buying Switch 2s, depending on what it looks like or what it can do, I guess. But I reckon you get an announcement around Summer's Game Fest, aka what it used to be E3, around in June, and then you probably get a confirmation around October. Release date around October, I meant to say.
Barely feels like it's been, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since the Switch come out, to be honest, but it come out in 2017.
Yeah, so the interesting thing was he had to backtrack his statement because they're on a follow-up to Digital Trends. Apparently, the Nintendo lawyers then contacted him and saying that Nintendo has not officially clarified a launch, so he had to backtrack his statement and say it's a launch window of fall 2024. That's what he's saying, which kind of helped us suggest that Nintendo got on the phone real quick to him and was like, "You can't say that. Don't say that. You need to fix it." So yeah. We'll see how that goes. Let's see if that pans out. And then another rumor, Nintendo held a secret Switch 2 demo at Gamescom 2023, which is according to a report by Eurogamer. And then also VGC also then confirmed that Nintendo held Switch 2 demos behind closed doors at last year's Gamescom event while promoting Pikmin 4 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the show floor in Germany. The demos consisted of a special version of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild running at high specs, while VGC suggests they saw a second demo of the Switch 2 hardware running the Unreal Engine 5 Matrix Awakens tech demo, which originally was used as a means of showcasing the capabilities of PS5 and Xbox Series X. They also claim that Switch 2 run NVIDIA's DLSS upscaling technology with a version of ray tracing enabled. Now, that's definitely exciting. That's pretty interesting. If you haven't ever seen the Matrix Awakens tech demo, it's literally like you're playing a movie. So if this Switch 2 could do that, then you're looking at a whole different ball game of games from the Nintendo library.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if have you ever seen the Matrix Awakens tech demo?
I have not. Is it worth going to watch it in like 4K on YouTube or something?
100%. If you ever get a chance, probably after the podcast is finished, go check out the demo. The Matrix Awakens essentially is basically like you're playing a movie. It's insane, the demo on that, and it's basically showing the technology of how Unreal Engine 5 is basically like you're playing a film, basically.
Oh, that's that video of Keanu Reeves talking. That's right.
Yeah. And everyone thought it was, it's just a filmed, like, it's part of a film, and then you realize, no, you're actually looking at like a Unreal Engine version of Keanu Reeves talking to you.
Yeah, Unreal Engine 5 is just, it's crazy, man.
It's insane what you can do with it. Have you seen the tech demo or the stuff they showed that you could do with it?
No, but look, I've seen enough videos. There's a few videos going around of like first-person shooter style things that I thought were real videos until people have pulled them up.
Yeah, there's that FPS first-person shooter game that literally looks like it's like body cam footage. Like it looks like it's body cam footage, but it was actually a game in Unreal Engine 5, and it looks so realistic. It's like everyone thought it was like a real like video, and they're like, no, this is actually just their Unreal Engine 5 like engine running the game.
Yeah, I did see that one. There are a few though. That was a good one. That probably is the top of the list in terms of the ones I saw that looked the most real. But I mean, not to get too dark, but you could make some false shooting or something like that, and you could put that video out there, and you could essentially defame people, or you could do some crazy shit with that kind of technology if you really were that dark and inclined to.
100%. Like, I'm not going to die. There's going to be people out there that probably are going to do like fake things like that and make you pass it off as real.
Yeah, just to get, push their way through. Look, it could be debunked. It's not a huge concern if they do, but people are gullible. But anyway, that's more to the point of how good Unreal Engine 5 is. It can be real hard to spot some of the fakes.
So, and then, okay, moving on later into the timeline, sources say a Switch 2 release date is planned for the back end of 2024, where development kits are with key partner studios already. In July 2023 report, VGC claimed that multiple people with knowledge of the Switch successor plans suggest the company was looking to release the new hardware in the second half of 2024. The aim, the sources claimed, was to have enough stock to avoid shortages similar to the PlayStation 5. The sources then said that the Switch 2 could launch with an LCD screen instead of the premium OLED in order to bring down costs. It could also accept physical games via cartridge slot, so it looks like they're keeping cartridges in. Apparently, the choices to forego an OLED screen was made to reduce costs given the need for additional storages for games with higher specs. According to the same sources, development kits were already in the hands of some of Nintendo's most important commercial partners. So that would be like first-party developers that would make a lot of the Switch titles. So obviously Game Freak, Pokemon Company, Square Enix, I imagine, would have some. Ubisoft probably would have some. Yeah. I'd imagine there'd be a few developers out there that would have already gotten their hands on whatever the Switch 2 prototype is.
Yeah, probably getting ahead of the game. They'll have games ready for release.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Ubisoft's been a pretty close ally to Nintendo of recent with, Just Dance 4 and them doing a crossover, which blew everyone's mind, that Mario would cross over with the Rabbids world, and they're actually doing titles together. Doesn't surprise me that Ubisoft probably would have the dev kit. And then last but not least, as of January 19th, only a few weeks ago, a report 8% of GDC survey respondents say they're working on a Switch 2. The GDC State of the Game Industry survey reports that 80% of the respondents are currently making games on the still announced Switch 2, which means that 8% of the game industry is currently working on a title for Switch 2.
Wonder how many games will be released when it is announced, or not announced, but when the Switch 2 console comes out then.
And the interesting thing is that Nintendo has announced this new hardware. Many developers could be working on the Switch 2 and dev kits and simply chose not to mention it for the fear of breaking any NDAs. The service is anonymous, of course, but a lot of people didn't say anything in fear of being in trouble. So that wouldn't surprise me that people are already working on titles. I mean, they would have to, because I imagine Nintendo would be like, we need launch titles for when we launch this thing, so it needs people to be working on titles for it. Yeah. And I mean, it all makes sense because, you can't launch a Switch, or a new console without having somebody making titles for it. So,
No, I wonder if people would still buy the console. That would be a worthwhile experiment. Maybe not on the scale that releasing a new console would be, but I just wonder if people would actually continue to buy it knowing there'd be no games for like 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's all the Switch 2 news that we have so far for it, which is funny enough because we're getting close to the hour mark. We haven't even talked about Palworld yet. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Switch 2? Do you think it'll come out this year?
Do I think it'll come out this year? Really, it's hard to tell. I would think not, to be honest. Given the other things I've heard so far, probably just time-wise, I don't know if it's good. There's a lot of things happening in the world, and until a lot of that's bowled over, they'd probably hold off. But I really don't know, to be honest.
I think they could. I think it could go one of two ways. I think one comes out this year, fantastic, comes around the holiday period, everyone buys one, happy days. Two, they could hold off on it and then go, hey, at least acknowledge that it exists and go, hey, yeah, it is something we're working on, but we're not going to talk about it right now because we have some things behind the scenes that we need to work on. We'll tell you more about it at a later date. Or they take the path of the third option where PlayStation or Xbox announce it early. Go, hey, this is a thing. It's coming. We don't have a release date for it yet, but we just let you know we are working on the next generation of Nintendo console or whatever it ends up being. Then a year from now, 2025, they go, boom, here it is. This is what it looks like. You can get it this holiday period. It's going for $3.99 US or whatever.
I'm curious, even if they decide to release it, the amount of consoles are released, because the chip shortage is still somewhat ongoing, with the exception of the automotive industry generally coming back. So I wonder if that's going to affect it too, or at least the amount during release.
Well, I think both yes and no. I mean, you look at PlayStation now, the reason why it was very hard to get a PS5 for a while is because of the chip shortage. But now you can get a PS5 easy. You can walk into any store and be like, I want a PS5. They're like, yeah, cool. We've got 30 of them at the back. Here you go.
Yeah. I guess also remembering a lot of people have already bought one too. Over time, they've just, yeah.
Well, they have the, then they just released the PlayStation 5 Slim as of recently as well. So.
Look, it did end in 2023 for the most part, but there are still some shortages. But look, over for the most part still. Too much speculation from me. Given that the console's not out, I can only overthink it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. I think, knowing Nintendo's track history, I think they will probably announce it pretty soon, and then it'll release in the same year. It's very rare that Nintendo would go, here's the console, but you're not getting it until next year. Nintendo usually keep things tight to the chest, and then they're like, here it is, here's the console. And they're also notorious for going, and one more thing at the end of their conferences. Every Nintendo Direct they've ever put out, there's always been, here are all the cool stuff, and one last thing, and then boom, here's the Switch 2 or whatever. I think that's why everyone was shocked when they announced the Wii U, because they're just like, and one more thing, and then they showed a footage of somebody holding the Wii U tablet and they're playing Mario on it. You're like, what?
Dude, I'm just bothered. I'm just bothered because I got these Switch consoles here thinking it'd be like probably another 5 years before another console comes out. Now I've got to get the Switch too.
I thought the same too. I'm like, I just got the Switch OLED model fairly recently, and they're like, really? You've switched to already?
Before you know it, man.
Like, it better be backwards compatible. I'll be so pissed if it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. How many years was it between the PS4 and the PS5? Like 11 years or something? 12?
No, PS4 came out in 2013, and PS5 came out in 2020, so it's about 7 years.
So yeah, I guess same time then.
Yeah, makes sense.
Same length of time. Yeah,
we're due for a new console from them.
I am just so far behind. I've been working too much, and I haven't gotten to see it all.
Well, I thought the same too when they announced the PS5, and I was like, oh, I can't be all ready for a console. And then like, here's the PS5, and I'm like, oh.
It's only been 47 days.
And then I did the math. I'm like, oh, well, actually, it's been 7 years, so that's quite in the middle of when a new console usually comes out, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm just behind.
Like, I thought the same when they were like, they're like, oh, we're bringing The Last of Us 1 to PS5, and I was like, you just did a remaster. Like, why would you do a new one? And they're like, to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the original game coming out. And I was like, what? 10 years? What? And then I like looked it up, and I'm like, yep, Last of Us Part 1 came out in 2013.
You were so surprised you grabbed your walking stick and got out of your chair.
Had a stroke in the chair while I was getting up. I'm like, what?
When did these grey hairs come up?
Exactly. And I was like, can't it be? And like, it's been a decade since Last of Us 1 came out. I was like, what? That's insane.
You know, the worst part is you can still say, whilst that was a decade ago, there was also the decade before that, and we still weren't that young then.
Yeah.
That's 20 years. Damn.
Yep. Because I remember having PS3 and I remember getting a PS4, and I remember my friend bought a PS4 that I worked with, and then he's like, oh, I'm just going to sell it because I've been playing PC lately. So I paid him off and got a PS4 off him. But and the first game I played on it was Thief, and God, that game is shit. It's so bad. It's cool to show off the features. It was cool to show off the features, but the game is god awful. Not the best first game to be playing on a new console.
I'm still remembering the Xbox 360 with its Red Ring of Death and Halo 3. Oh, Halo 3. Yeah.
I remember that. I was pretty much a Sony boy back then, but yeah, my mate getting the Xbox, and he's like, yeah, I got my new Xbox. I'm like, yeah, can you actually play it? Because I swear this is the third time you've taken it back because it's had a Red Ring of Death. So,
look, I'll be honest, I never had a Red Ring of Death, across the two 360s I had. The only reason I really had it, I'd had like the PS2, the PlayStation 1, but I got the 360 for Halo and for Gears of War.
I think everyone had it for Halo. It was pretty much the reason why a lot of people had it.
Yeah.
That and Forza, because everyone loved Forza as well.
Forza was dope. It's good. It was good.
No, I guess we should move on to our last topic, since we're running out of time, in the interest of time. Palworld has just come out, and it is getting a lot of similarities to the Pokemon franchise. Because there's a bit of controversy with that as well, with a lot of Pokemon hardcore fans saying it's pretty much another knockoff or rip-off of the Pokemon franchise, with people showing pretty inconclusive, pretty much showing a bit of evidence to say that Palworld has ripped off Pokemon in some sense, with some of their characters looking very similar to Pokemon that have already been out. Like there's a wolf-type Pal called Dire Wolf. Looks very similar to Lycanroc that's in the Pokemon franchise. There's been a Pal, that looks very similar to a Meganium from Pokemon. It's just standing upright and its flowers on its head. There's also another one that looks very similar to a Luxray, but it's got a different name. I don't know what the name is. I'm sure you could tell me in the comments, but yeah. So my interesting thought was, if Nintendo decided to take the developers of Palworld 2 to court, do you think they have a case to win the court case?
Look, I'm no professional at all, so I don't know if I should answer, but I know unless there's a very direct depiction of a character, there's no intellectual property on creating your own different designs, as close as they might be, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like, because there's been many Pokemon knockoffs over the years, and I guess the main thing is how do you distinguish between what's a Pokemon and what's a separate IP that just happens to be a different kind of monster taming kind of game.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's been other monster taming games as well.
Oh, 100%. There's been so many. There's been Nexomon, Digimon always got compared to Pokemon. In the recent years, Temtem, when the Temtem came out, that was also very heavily compared to Pokemon as well, which I actually played Temtem. We did a stream of it over on our Twitch channel. Shameless plug there, Neopast TV. But yeah, Temtem was a pretty good game and very Pokemon-ish kind of Pokemon-like game. So, but I guess the real question is, does Palworld have a lot of other elements to their game that can separate it from the world of Pokemon to make it a unique IP? Is more of the question.
What I've seen is it's more like Arc than it is like Pokemon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, after thinking, I think like 30 hours into the game or something so far, is at first glance, 100%. I get why people think it's a Pokemon knockoff, because at first glance, yes, it looks like a Pokemon game with, monsters that have guns when, it's more adult style. But under the layer of the first appearance, classic example, don't judge a book by its cover. When you start playing the game, it is actually probably more similar to Arc. It's more similar to Arc / Fortnite / Zelda. It's got so many different elements happening into it that you can't exactly just call it one ripoff. Because there's things where you go to towers that are fast travels, and then you walk to a new area, and it does a little jingle, and it's like, oh, you've reached the Shao Mines or whatever, and it does the same jingle as Zelda. It gives you very Zelda vibes. There's a climbing mechanic in it where you climb rocks and stuff. That has a stamina bar. It looks very Zelda-like from Breath of the Wild. But then you got building elements that's very similar. You got building elements that's very similar to Arc, where you build your base and you got to build resources to build it up, and so your pals take care of all the heavy duty stuff and all that kind of stuff. And then you got other elements where it becomes an FPS shooter like Fortnite, where you're jumping and shooting bosses and stuff like that, and other NPCs. So it's very hard to distinguish what exactly, if it is ripping off anything, what particular franchise is ripping it off, or whether it's so unique that it's not actually ripping off anyone.
Well, I've got a question for you. In today's environment, with everything that's already been done, how difficult is it going to be completely original, though? That's another good thing. You can take many good things and make them better, or even make them your own. I wouldn't really consider that ripping people off if you've done a really good job to make something better than the original.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. I think we're at the point now where games have hit a peak where a particular genre is always going to be compared to a different genre, or a different game in that same genre. I mean, even going back to the days of, it was Battlefield versus Medal of Honor versus Call of Duty.
All good games in their own right.
All good games in their own right. All FPSs. They all had unique takes on the franchises. But at the end of the day, if you stripped all of it away, they were very similar to each other and very in the same vein. And I remember it got to a point where Medal of Honor, it dipped off the market, and it was always you're either a Battlefield fan or you're a Call of Duty fan. You couldn't be both. That's just that's how the gaming industry used to see each other back then.
Yeah, I never really enjoyed Call of Duty after World at War. I continued playing Battlefield, but that was primarily for its online content. I found it to be, considerably more enjoyable. Again, that's just how I enjoyed the game. So
Yeah, well, that's how I felt too, because I was more after, the realistic shooter, destruction, all that kind of stuff. And I found Call of Duty, just in my personal opinion at the time, it was too arcadey. It was literally just run, gun, shoot, and that's it. And there wasn't
yeah,
anything else offering anything better for me.
it felt very hollow as a shooter.
Yeah. Whereas, I only get why people loved it, because they could go on kill streaks, get up to 40 kills, drop a nuke, game over, whatever. It was cool. Doing 360 trick shots, all that kind of stuff. Whereas Battlefield, I felt like to me was you're playing a real, well, not really a real shooter, but a more refined shooter, because you were shooting, there was bullet drop, gravity affected things, lights affected things. You were able to destroy walls. It wasn't just camp in one spot and nobody could get you. You could be like, oh, you're hiding behind that wall. I'm just going to blast that wall open and take you out. So,
Yeah, having to plan a little more strategy involved instead of just run into every building, do a 360 no scope, and you pull out again.
100%. There was times where, there'll be snipers, they camp up in a high spot, and next thing you're just like, okay, stuff you then. I'm going to wipe out that spot. I'm going to take out all the wires to the building, and the next thing the whole building will collapse. And that's the way I'm going to get you down from there.
Here, hold my pistol. I'm going to find a tank.
Exactly. And I thought there was more cohesion. Plus the area battles. I used to be very good in the jet. I fly a jet really well on Battlefield 3 days.
That was heaps of fun.
I would literally wouldn't do anything else for the whole match. I'd literally just sit on a jet and just wipe people out with the jet.
I was one of those bastards that sat in the spawn zone with the M240 Bravo on a tripod. I would stay prone with my 100-round mag and just keep at people. So when I first started playing, I was introduced by a friend of mine, and that's what he taught me. I'd get 50 kills in a match and 2 deaths just because I would hold that spawn zone. I wouldn't let the other teams out. As soon as I got there with the M240, that was it. Just sat there until there was nothing else I could do, until I couldn't, for whatever reason, get ammo. I was a bit of a dick.
Just drop ammo packs, and then you just never ending ammo.
Yeah, I did play the support class with the M240, so you could drop your own ammo.
I used to do fun things too. We'd get bored and we'd chuck C4 on the Jeep, so then jump out of the Jeep last minute and detonate the C4. We had a particular name class for it. Yeah, I had a particular name for it, but I'm not going to repeat on here because people probably find it offensive. But it was, we'd put C4 on and jump out, blow the C4, lob up a tank, you'd get a multi-kill when it was giving you a hard time. Those were the fun days.
Yeah, just suicide bomb vehicle.
Yeah. But
strap C4 to your friend.
Yeah. Where you have the maps and you'd stand on top of the maps and fly across.
Yeah. Man, they were great games.
But yeah, I guess more in case of your point, you got a point, at what point in the gaming industry do we get to a point where we go, hey, you're ripping this off, and then you go, okay, yeah, but technically you're ripping off this genre.
If something's genuinely been ripped off and it's just completely shameless and they haven't even cared to do something original in it, sure. But look, I haven't played Palworld, but I do have friends that have played it, and I've seen enough of the content to say it's not really Pokemon. Sure, the actual creatures, they have similarities, but that's kind of where it ends, apart from the balls. What do you call them in that?
Palspheres.
Yeah, the Palspheres. I mean, as far as I can see, that's kind of where the similarities end. I mean, Pokemon don't have machine guns. But anyway, I just don't see enough of it personally. I mean, when I first saw the video, I was like, oh yeah, cool. Looks similar to Pokemon. I only confused it for maybe the first 30 seconds of the video. I was like, oh no, it's not Pokemon. And it is different. So look, I don't know what is required to, I guess, fight a lawsuit against it, but I'm hoping they don't come to that, because as a consumer, I would not take kindly to Nintendo doing that, to be honest, or Pokemon, not Nintendo, sorry.
Yeah, well, I think people were just overreacting at the surface level, but people that have actually spent time playing the game, you see is actually very vastly different to Pokemon. It's not what you think it is. I'm going to be honest, when I first saw the trailer, and I'm an avid Pokemon fan, first saw the trailer, I was like, oh my god, it's Pokemon with guns. Holy crap. Well, I don't know how long this is going to last. Like, Nintendo's going to come for their ass. And then the game actually came out, and a lot of people were talking about it. I was like, you know what? It's on Game Pass. Let me have a go at it. I might watch some videos on it. Some of the YouTubers I follow were playing it. I had a look and watch their videos and go and see what their reactions were. And then I saw what they were doing, and I was like, what? This isn't Pokemon. Like, what is this? This is more like Arc. And then I was like, you know what? I don't mind Arc. Who knows? I might enjoy it. It's got kind of like Pokemon elements to it, but it's not quite the same. I'll jump in. I'll give it a go. And then all my other friends were like, hey, we're going to play it too. Let's all join together. So then we all started playing together, and we're like, holy crap, this game is so much fun. It's so addictive. You lose hours of it, and there's always something to do.
You and then you took 2 weeks off work.
I wish. I actually got
sick.
Well, actually, funny you say that, because I actually was sick, so that actually gave me time to play it.
But, yeah, how fortuitous.
I know, how inconvenient that was.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, it was one of those things where I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, wow, this game actually has more elements to it than more than meets the eye. It was just a game that drew me in, and I was like, okay, cool. I think mostly for me, I think for a game to be in early access and have success the way it has gotten success is just astronomical. Like, it's insane to see a game in early access reach the numbers it did on Steam. Like,
I have seen. Go ahead.
I'll just pull up then the stats while we're here.
I have seen their timeline or their plans of releases and things like that. It looks like a game that they intend to go for quite a while. With you having played the game, do you think it's a game you could play as a primary? You know how you've got, your game that you usually play, you might put 2 hours a day in or 10 hours a week or whatever it could end up being. Is it one of those games?
Yeah, I 100% agree. It'll be a game that I will probably jump in from time to time. See what's changed, see what's different, and then it'll be a love-hate game, I reckon. It'll be a game that I stop playing for a little bit after I get a little bit bored with it. They'll drop new content. I'll jump straight in. I'll play 100, like another 30 or 40 hours, and then I'll jump out and go, okay, I'm done. And then they'll do another thing. They'll drop another DLC or something, and I'll be like, okay, now I'm back in. So here by the numbers, the active online players in just even the last hour is 1,124,570 players concurrently right now.
That's crazy.
As of the last hour. The amount of players that have played in the last 30 days has been 6.8 million players in the last 30 days. Total Twitch watched hours in the last 30 days is 27.8 million hours on Twitch of people watching it. And the most amount of viewers watching a Palworld stream at one time has been 434,200 people watching Palworld at one time.
So could I assume that it's probably the biggest game in the world right now? There you go.
Garner positive reviews. 85% of the 292 reviews on Steam are all saying very positive. There's been 1 million concurrent players on Steam, surpassing Counter-Strike 2 as the top game on the platform on Steam, which is absolutely insane.
Look, I'm happy for them. I think it's fantastic.
A reasonably kind of new, well, it's not a new company, I guess, for a new game on the market in early access. That's absolutely astronomical.
I've not heard of Pocket Pair before, so they got Craftopia over Dungeon.
Craftopia, yeah.
Yeah.
So they have an average of 1.1 million players on average, and peak players of 2.1 million people playing all at one time. which is absolutely, that's insane. That's
looking at Craftopia now, it looks quite similar.
It does, yeah. Craftopia got in trouble because they look too similar to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking the same thing. It's all too familiar, but I'm looking at the combat. Look, how far do you go though? Like, do they have the same coding or? Oh, that's probably another topic. I'm just going to stay out of that one for now.
It might be a topic for another time.
Yeah.
So in total, a peak of 2.1 million players are logged into the game simultaneously on the platform on Steam. That's not including the Game Pass counts. That's just Steam. With confirming over 8 million copies were sold within the first week. On average, the game has been sitting on 1,129,026 concurrent players since launch ever since, on average. So it means everyone's playing it. That's not including the Game Pass version, because there are people that are playing Game Pass version or on console. That's just purely Steam.
That's honestly, that's amazing.
Which is insane. The only it's the highest concurrent player count in paid game history on Steam, beating out Cyberpunk 2077. And the only game that hasn't beaten is PUBG, which had 3 million players before it was made free to play.
I only ever played PUBG on mobile. I never got into that one.
Yeah, so it looks like Palworld is now the number 2 biggest game of all time in launch week on Steam. That is. You got to remember, Palworld hasn't even hit like PlayStation yet, or maybe even a Switch version later down the track. Then it's insane just for Steam alone. That's not including Game Pass version or the Xbox version.
Yeah, it's going to do well. I mean, it already is. It's only going to do better.
Yeah, and I remember there being a tweet, actually, somebody asked, Shuya Yoshida, who works for PlayStation, they asked him, when's Palworld coming to PlayStation? He responded with soon, and then tagged the Japanese community developer for PlayStation. So
that's great.
You can't help but go, it's only a matter of time before PlayStation come to the table like, we need it on our platform now.
How many people can play on a map? Is it like, I think I read 30-something? Well, not on a map, but on a server.
32.
32, there you go.
Yeah. You can do only on the Steam version. To clarify, that's only the Steam version.
Okay.
If you play on Game Pass on PC or on Xbox, you're limited to 4.
So that's why there's so many Steam players.
At the time of this recording, it's 4. They are implementing it 32 later on, but it's only available on the Steam version at the current time of this podcast. So yeah, and if you guys want to join too, we actually do have our own dedicated server launched for Palworld. So if you want to check that out, you can head on over to neoaia.com, neoaia.com. Join our Discord, which I think is also the same on our Discord. You can click on our Discord link on our website, and you can join our server. And yeah, you'll get a link to the server, and you can come play Palworld with us. It's a dedicated server based in North America at the moment. We're in the middle of transferring it across to an Australian server. It's only because a lot of servers are full right now. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. Jump on, play some games with the NeoPass crew. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Well, I guess we should wrap up the podcast there. We're getting towards the end. It's been a little bit over an hour, actually. Any final thoughts, Jay, about the stuff we've been talking about?
No, it's actually quite a lengthy conversation between the two of us, between those two subjects, the Switch 2 and Palworld. It was quite lengthy.
Yeah,
Girthy too.
I didn't go that far. Jeez. All right, guys. So don't be afraid to tune in next week, where there will be a PlayStation State of Play actually happening this Thursday at 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time here in Queensland. So we'll be able to bring you all these news on that one in the next podcast, depending on when this goes live. We'll be able to talk about some of the topics we saw there, the future of PlayStation moving forward, and maybe some other topics that could pop up during the week. Maybe there might be an update in the Palworld Controversy, who knows? But in the meantime, we'll bring the latest in gaming news as we always do. I've been your host, Charlie, and I've been here with Jay.
Goodbye, everyone.
And as always, we'll see you on the next level. Have a good day.